Hi everyone, Leah here from EurekaCrystalBeads.com with a really fun beading video for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to go check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and you'll always know when we're posting new content. Today's project is going to be using elements from our Orchid Oasis Collection over on EurekaCrystalBeads.com. This is a beautiful collection featuring silvers and blacks and all different beautiful shades of purples. And I was really inspired to make this really fun embellished spiral rope bracelet. So let's go over what I'm going to be using. The base of my spiral is going to have two different colors of size 11 seed beads here. Now I do have a tiara cast button. That's the only element here that's not included in the collection. I needed a really good clasp that fit, and I absolutely loved this tiara cast button, but you can get this over on our website if you'd like to use the same exact one as me for the clasp. Next, I have some beautiful accent beads. As you can see, you get tons of sparkle, and I have some fire polish here. These are 3mm fire polish, and I have a beautiful little selection here of crystal bicones. Lastly, I have some really fun O beads. If you've never worked with O beads before, I think they're really whimsical. I think they're a lot of fun. You can do a lot of really cool things with them. We're going to be using them in the embellishments, and then I have some size 8 demi beads as well. Now, lastly, we're going to use 6-pound Fireline. I'm going to be using the color Smoke. I'm going to be using a beading needle. Here I have a size 10. Depending on how tight the spiral gets when I'm embellishing, a size 12 may be necessary, but for now we're going to see how far I can get with a size 10, and of course some scissors. All right, let's get started. All right, to start off our bracelet, we're going to be doing a spiral rope. And if you've never done a spiral rope before, it's a really versatile beading technique that can look beautiful all on its own, or it's a great canvas to embellish off of, which is what we'll be doing here in this bracelet. So our spiral is going to be really simple because it's our embellishments later that are going to make it look a little fancier. So we're just going to start with those two size 11 seed beads. Now we're going to pick one for the core of our spiral and one for the outer section of our spiral. Now I'm going to show you how you start the spiral, but I've gone ahead and already completed the length of my spiral, but I want to show you where those two colors sit. So that matte black color, that is my core. And then that beautiful shiny deep dark purple is the outer sections. So just so you can get an idea of where they sit in case you want to use different seed beads for your project, that is what they will look like. So the way we start our spiral is we're going to take a length of some Fireline. Now I'm just using a really short piece here because I'm just showing you how to get the spiral started. But really for this project, you're going to want to work with as much Fireline as you feel you can handle. And the reason I say that is because you inevitably will have to add on. So I don't want you to feel like you have to work with such a long amount of thread that you're going to get nothing but tangles. So start with an amount that's reasonable. But a great little tip though is you can start at the very middle of a very long piece of Fireline, and you can start your spiral in the middle, and then when that end is all eaten up, you can put your needle on the other side and your spiral will be completely seamless, but I'll show you that a little later. So the way we start is we're going to pick up 4 of our core beads, that's that matte black color, and I'm going to pick up 3 of my outer beads, that kind of really pretty shiny iridescent dark purple. I'm going to bring them to, for me, what's towards the end of my Fireline, but for you should be the middle of a nice long piece of Fireline. And I'm going to go back through all of those beads, starting with the 4 core beads down here. So your needle is coming out of the same side that your thread was coming out of. We're going to bring this down, and it makes a loop. But you'll notice your loop doesn't really want to close. So the thing you're going to do to close your loop is you're going to circle back around through those 4 core beads all over again. And you will notice that you will get a nice little circle. So this is the start of the spiral. You can see our core has been started. It's now 4 beads high. And you can see that we have our first little outer loop of our purple beads. So that was step A of a spiral rope. And the way I describe spiral ropes is that you do step A and then you never do step A ever again. This is just to get it started. Now I'm going to show you step B, and it's step B that will repeat over and over and over again to complete the length of our spiral. Now, I like to hold my beadwork so I'm exposing my core to my vision, it's facing me, and I'm holding that little outer loop behind it. And as far as this thread here, this is your tail thread, and this is your working thread. Now you may find that you like to hold it a little bit differently, and that's totally fine. This is just what I find comfortable and what I think works pretty well. Now I'm going to pick up the following beads: 1 core bead, and then 3 of my outer beads. So in this case, that's 1 matte black and 3 shiny metallic dark purple. I'm going to go to the bead that my thread is coming out of, and I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go up those 3 beads, leaving that bottom core bead at the bottom sort of ignored. You get this little loop. You're going to push it back to the side. And you'll see that where your thread is, there's that new top core bead right above it. That's what we're going to go through, and it's going to straighten out and sit in line with the rest of the core. And here's where I like to give it a nice good tug, and I do that each time I complete a step B. So what you'll see is that we completed a step B, and our little group of 3 sits a smidgen higher than the first group of 3. It sits higher by about the length of 1 bead. Now, as far as that pushing that loop back to the side, that you can go either direction, but you need to make sure that once you pick a direction, you stick with it. Otherwise, you will break the spiral. You will not have an actual spiral. So I'm going to use my finger to hold that loop back. It's important that it doesn't flop back around to the other side without you realizing it. So just one more time, I'm going to pick up 1 core bead and 3 outer beads. I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, which now, as you can see, leaves 2 core beads at the bottom that we're just going to ignore. You're always going to want to go up through your top 3, at least with this spiral anyway. Bring it down. You can see that new top core bead that we're going to eventually go through. Push it back to the side, and then go through your new top core bead, which is going to straighten it up so it sits in line with the rest of your core. And again, I like to pull against this just to keep it nice and tight, but you can see our spiral starting to form. So if you're a little bit unsure of how to do the spiral rope, how to continue these steps, I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and look on our channel and watch my stitch tutorial on how to do a spiral rope. I'll show you a lot more and get a lot more granular in detail. But for now, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step of this project. All right, so I have my spiral completed. The length of your spiral should just about meet around your wrist, but this also depends on how loose you like to wear your bracelet, so it might be a little bit of trial and error. But this meets around my wrist because I know that the clasp is going to add length, so I'm not too worried about that. Now, when I did this spiral, I used 1 very long piece of fire line, probably about 6 feet or so, and I started probably about here. I worked up this whole spiral, and then I stuck my needle on the other side and worked it up from the other side. And you get something that's completely seamless, because as you can see, this is the end. You can just completely keep going. Same thing on this side. You can completely keep going. They are just nice little matches for each other. So it's just a nice little trick to be able to not have to add on quite as soon. So in this case, I have my longer side with my needle on it right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my button sewed on. So whenever you're doing a clasp that's going to be a button and loop style, or a toggle, which is a bar and loop style, anything where it's going to have a loop that it goes through, you want to secure the button first, or the bar first, because that is going to be how you best guesstimate how big you should make the loop from the other side. You want this nicely situated. So I'm coming out of that top core bead there, and we're just going to do a nice little beaded loop. You can do whichever color you'd like. I think I'm going to do that purple. And it looks like my beads might float through this, so we'll check that. If your beads are not going to float through this loop, then you're going to want to just pick up maybe 4 beads or so, go through the loop and pick up another 4. But we'll see. Let's see. Do they go through? Yes, they do float through. So in this case, I don't have to really worry about putting on a certain amount or an equal amount on both sides. I think I'm going to do, because it can float through, I think I'm going to do an odd number. I'm going to do 9 beads. Now this loop here, this little loop of beads here, isn't really functional. It's the button that's going to be functional, and it's going to be the larger loop on the other side of the bracelet that's going to be functional for the button to go through. This little loop, you can really make this as tiny or as long as you want. If you find that you want to give your bracelet just a little bit more length, this is a great little spot to do that, because you can just make a little bit of a longer loop if you'd like. So I have my beads on there, my button. You can see my button that just floats right over those beads. And I'm going to head right back into my beadwork here, and I'm going to go down 5 core beads like that. You can see you get this nice little loop of beads here. Now I want to go back and reinforce this. So the reason I went down 5 core beads is because that way I'm able to go up this second to the last grouping I did of 3 beads and still have 1 more core bead at the top to pop out of to then go up and reinforce that. Head right back up there. And you'll see I'm right at the perfect spot lined up to go through that top core bead and then go right back up into my loop. And it's okay, it's going to be a little bit loosey-goosey right now. That's because we're still working on tightening it up. You can see once you give it a little pull, it tightens up a little bit more nicely. I'm going to go through all of those beads there. And again, if it's still a little bit loosey-goosey, don't worry about it. Once we go back down into the bracelet and give it 1 more tug, it's going to tighten up nicely. I'm going to go right back into that same top core bead, and then I'm going to go down those same 5 core beads again, because we're just going to repeat what we just did to reinforce it 1 more time. Okay, so my button has been reinforced nicely. And what I also like is that it can move around. So it's going to be nice and easy to put into the loop that we'll create later. So if you're wondering if we're now going to create the loop on the other side, nope, not quite yet. What we're going to do is first do a pass of embellishments going from this side all the way to this side. Once we're at the other side with our needle, then we'll do our loop. But for now, we're already at this side, and my tail at the other side isn't quite long enough for me to do a loop. So we're just going to keep using our nice long working thread and start to do some embellishments. So I've worked my way down those same 5 core beads again, just so that way when I start my embellishments, I'm not starting them right here at the top near the button, which can make this area a little bulkier and harder to get through our loop. So I just worked my way down just a little bit, and I went with those same 5 core beads just for good measure. And now I'm going to show you how we do some really fun embellishments. Okay, so I've dumped out some of those other accent beads that I'll be using, and I also left my seed beads out as well. So as far as our embellishments, this is where you're going to be able to have a lot of fun. You can choose to make your embellishments look the same and just repeat the same type of embellishment down the whole bracelet. You can switch it up. You can switch up your colors, your textures. You can really have a lot of fun with it. What I recommend is try a few little test fringes first to try out some different styles, and you'll see what you like. And you'll see if you want to continue those same styles or pull them out and try some other ones. But I'm going to give you some of the ideas that I like to use. So I'm coming out of one of my core beads. I think I'm going to pick up a seed bead. I think for this embellishment, I'm going to pick up a fire polish, and then I'm going to pick up another seed bead. So that's what I got. In fact, I think I'm actually going to reverse that order. I think I'm going to go with the black at the bottom, and then the purple, and then the dark purple. Just like that. And you're going to bring your beads all the way down to your bracelet. Now the bead at the end is going to be your stop bead. It's going to be the bead that keeps these other beads from coming off. So you're going to just move it out of the way and go back down the other 2 beads you added, and then right through the very next core bead. And now give everything a nice little tug as you pull it down. Just like that. We made a little fringe. Now what's neat is that we're going to do an embellishment in between every single core bead. And you'll notice that as we turn this, the core beads are exposed in sort of the pattern of a spiral. So your embellishments are going to spiral around the bracelet. Now you don't have to put an embellishment in between every single core bead. If you want a little bit of a lighter look, you can maybe skip a core bead and you can do every other core bead. If you want your bracelet to have embellishments that are a little more jingly jangly, you can make these longer, or you can have them be a little bit more short and stubby. You can also start out with smaller little embellishments and get bigger as you get towards the center, and then go back smaller again. You have a lot of options, and this is where your imagination is going to take hold. So now I'm going to do another embellishment, but I'm going to use my O beads and my demis here, because I think they're going to add a really, really fun texture. So I'm going to start with a little bead down the bottom. I'm going to go with, I think, one of my O beads and then one of my demis and then another little seed bead on top. I could have even added a bicone at the top if I wanted to, but I'm going to start with some that are a little bit smaller, and then I can always get bigger towards the center. So these are the beads I added. I ignore that last one because it's still going to be the little stopper bead. I'm going to go back down the other three and then right through the next core bead. And if your needle doesn't want to pop out of the next core bead, just like mine wanted to kind of go through 2 core beads, my personal little tip is I don't fight it. I go through the 2 core beads. Then I backtrack through the last one. I find sometimes that's easier than trying to fight through getting just through the 1 core bead. And then I just go and I backtrack. To me, that's just faster. I still get the result I want, only I'm just not fighting with it as much. So you can see how this embellishment sits just a hair higher than this one, because it's our spiral starting. And I think I'm actually going to absolutely love using these O beads and these demis. And these are both featured in that Orchid Oasis kit. Everything here is, like I said, except for the button, which you can certainly easily add to cart if you wanted to use it with the same collection of beads if you're going to consider purchasing it. So I think I'm going to do, let's see, now let's work a crystal into there. So I think I'm going to do a little bead at the bottom. I'm going to do one of my O beads, and then I'm going to do a beautiful little bluish toned crystal there, which definitely still fits in beautifully with this purple theme. And then I'm going to get a little seed bead at the top. Again, move that little stop bead out of the way, go back down everything else, and through my next core bead. Just like that. You can see it. This one sits just a hair above this one and just a hair above that one. So it's our spiral starting. All right, let me show you another couple of ideas as far as embellishments go. And then I'm going to come back with all of this completed to show you how to do the loop on the other side. So let's see, another one we can try is a little seed bead at the bottom, which you don't have to do. If you want your fringes to kind of pop out a little bit more stiffly, you can avoid doing a little seed bead at the very bottom of it. This is what will keep it having a little bit more movement, but it's up to you. I think we're going to do a demi, an O, and a demi on this one. Little seed bead on top. I love that with this collection, there's so many different textures and shapes. So I'm really going to have fringes that are just going to look so incredibly funky and different. And I love that because it's going to make for amazing texture. So this is another one where my needle just doesn't want to pop out of that next core bead. So I'm just going to go through 2 and then backtrack through the 1 because it's faster than just fighting with it. Okay, and if it tightens up a little bit like this, just loosen that back up. Super, super fun. So let me backtrack through that last bead because my bracelet was being just a little bit naughty. Okay, and now I'm in the perfect spot to do another embellishment. Now you can even do embellishments that are little loops if you wanted to really add some fun texture. I'm really liking the idea of this being kind of very spiky. So that's kind of what I'm sticking with, but you could easily pick up a seed bead and string on a length of beads and go back down that seed bead and you'll have really fun little textural loops, which in abundance look absolutely amazing. I'm going to pick up a little demi here. I'm going to pick up a nice light colored purple, little beautiful cyclamen opal. One more seed bead. But I really love the O beads and the demis in an abundance on one of these bracelets really add such a cool look. So I'm really happy that they're in this particular collection. Okay, so now you can really start to see that spiral forming because it's going around the core that's exposed in the bracelet. So you can see right there, there's the really big height difference between the first and the most recent fringe. And you can see it spiraled all the way. Okay, I'm going to keep going with this, and I'm going to come back when I get to the other side so I can show you what I've done and show you how we finish up with our loop. Okay, so I have finished all of my embellishments, which I think just look so fun. They're so textural and they have so much beautiful movement, and it's actually a very comfortable design to have on your wrist. So you can see where we had our button here. We worked all the way from the button side all the way till the end. I did leave the last few core beads without embellishments just so that way this area wouldn't get bulky. And now we're going to create the loop that the button will go through. Now I figured out exactly what I wanted my loop to look like, and so therefore the right measurement, but you can have your loop be perhaps just some of the 3mm fire polish you have left. You could have it be just seed beads. You could have it be the O beads. You could have it be the demis. You have options here, but the one that I figured out that I like is going to have seed beads and the 3mm fire polish. So let me get these strung up, and I'm going to show you exactly the right amount that I used. I liked having the mix of the seed beads and the fire polish because to me it pulled in the look of the rest of the bracelet, which of course has the dark element throughout and the light element throughout. So for me, that helps to tie in the look of even the clasp area, which I think is also important. That everything look nice and cohesive. So what I'm going to do is I picked up one fire polish, 2 seed beads, and then fire polish seed bead 8 more times, and then I made sure I ended with an additional little seed bead on there that matches that little double right there. And the only reason that I have 2 seed beads there and 2 seed beads there is because I found that those 2 extra seed beads, the 1 and the 1, were needed for the length of the loop. So I'm going to go back now through my fire polish, that very first fire polish, which will be sort of the base of our loop. I'm going to go back down through some core beads. And we're going to go down through 5, so that way when we turn around through that second to the last loop, we have 1 more seed bead at the top that we can go through to reinforce our loop. So I have to go through just 1 more there. And in this type of situation, here's where you might find a size 12 needle a little bit more helpful, because with a size 10, it might get a little bit tight. So that is what our loop looks like. And I'm going to try to hold this nice and tight so I can show you how you can check. You want to sort of wrap around your finger, or in some way hold it nice and tight so you can make sure that your loop can go through just fine. And you want to make sure that your loop doesn't go through too easily, because you don't want it to fall out of that loop too easily, but you don't want to have to really struggle to put the button through the loop either, because you don't want it to put added stress on this area. And also, if you're just holding it tight to test it and you're really having to push that loop through, you might be loosening up that loop a little bit as you do it, which you don't realize, and then you could make your loop a little bit too small in actuality. But this one I think is going to be absolutely perfect. So what I'm going to do is, just like we reinforced that button side, I went down the 5 core beads. I'm going to go back up the beads of my second to the last loop, is the outer loop that lines up with that 5th core bead down. And then I can just turn this and go right through that top seed bead, just so it keeps everything nice and in line at the end. And I can travel through this whole loop just to get it nicely reinforced. And just like we reinforced that button 2 additional times after we sewed it together, we're going to do this 2 additional times after we got it sewed together. So the loop actually has 3 lines, or the button rather has 3 lines of fire line through that little loop there, and this will end up having 3 layers or lines of fire line going through it as well, to make sure that it's nice and strong, because after all of this beautiful work, the last thing you want is for something to come apart. So I'm going to go ahead and get this reinforced the rest of the way, and I'll come back to show you the finished product. All right, and here we have our finished project, which I think is so much fun, with the textures and both the lights and the darks and the mediums in between. And when you use beads that are from one of our collections, you're usually going to find that there's a beautiful array of textures, which I think is really nice. So we have, crystals that are really transparent. We have opalescent crystals. We have opalescent fire polish. We have opaque seed beads. You really get a beautiful variety in our Orchid Oasis collection. And like I said, the only thing in this project that wasn't there was that tiara cast button, but you can certainly add that to cart if you'd like, along with your Orchid Oasis collection, if you're looking to repeat this exactly as is, color for color. If you want to have a nice close-up of all those little fringes, you can take a look, pause the video if you need to, if you want to see some of the fringe makeups that I did. You can see in some of them, I topped them with the little demis. In some of them, I topped them with the seed beads. So you have options there as far as what you want to be at the tip of your fringes. And you can just get an idea of some of the things that I did. All right, everyone, I hope you loved it. Thanks for watching. Make sure to visit us on over at EurekaCrystalBeads.com for everything that I used in this video, and we will link you in the video description below so you can check it out for yourself. Bye.